So we're doubling down on the good liars today, as they also attended Trump's recent Pennsylvania rally, talking to the MAGA cult, and what sparked some pretty wild statements from them, which is typical at this point for the Trump crowd. So I've lined up what I thought were the best of these that we could make some points off of, and figured we could provide the needed context.
Everybody loved Donald Trump. They loved everything about him. Oprah, New York, Donald Trump. They loved him. All of a sudden, he says he's a Republican, he's running for president. All of a sudden, nobody likes him. How can that be?
You think they liked him the whole time?
Well, they tolerated him, yeah. I mean, he was very successful.
Right. Well, I remember he was saying that, Barack Obama wasn't born in this country, and people thought that was kind of a strange, maybe even, borderline kind of racist lie to push.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's what people were saying, and then it turned out it wasn't true at all, and I think people kind of turned on him.
I had to start with this clip because it's one of the most egregious lies that MAGA constantly tries to tell in a way that will paint Republicans as victims, that, well, Trump was so loved and adored until he became a Republican, and Republicans are just so judged and oppressed that now he's hated, which literally isn't true. One, it's the norm in America to be conservative. MAGA is hated because most of them are bigots. But Trump, prior to running for the presidency, was sued for racial housing discrimination. This was decades ago. His ex-wife divorced him and claimed that he raped her. There was major backlash from this. This was in the 90s. There was the entire Trump University scandal where he ripped off hundreds, if not thousands of kids, upwards amounts of 35 grand. He was sued for this as well. As he mentioned in this clip, Trump pushed the birther lie about Obama in 2014 and received major backlash for it. This was before he ever announced that he would run. He actually used the publicity he got from pushing the birther lie to then go on and announce that he was going to run. There was an entire group in the 2000s called Tripping Up Trump who would push back against his environmentally unfriendly projects. Workers for decades before he ran for president came out and were saying, hey, this guy isn't paying us what we're owed. He's having us build these things in terrible conditions, and he's not even paying us what we're owed, let alone a fair share. The backlash he received over the Central Park 5 and then refusing to apologize after, again, long before he decided to run for president. All of this led to him being wildly disliked years or even decades before running. The only people who say this just don't have any history or any idea of his history outside of him coming down that golden escalator. It's a really bad talking point, not based in reality now, and it's more mainstream now because as president, all these actions are further thrust in the spotlight. But you could say the same about Kamala. Nobody talked about Kamala and Willie Brown before she was the nominee, right? You could talk about Biden. Nobody talked about Hunter Biden until he was the nominee. This is just the norm. He just has more egregious things to be brought up than any other kind of candidate in history.
You have a shirt here, and it's Trump, and then you've put duct tape over another name. What's the name that's under there?
That would be our former Vice President, Mike Pence.
And why did you put the tape over Mike Pence's name there?
Well, it's not just because he refused to decertify the election. It's because Mike Pence has come out as the rhino that he's always been and said that those of us that vote for Trump are toxic.
I show this one to make 2 points. The first being how to be in the cult of MAGA that has taken over the Republican Party, the only qualification is a sworn allegiance to Trump. If you don't do that, then you're just a fake Republican. When Mike Pence, however, holds 100 more conservative values than Trump, he was the governor of my state. As governor, he did tax cuts. He did anti-union stuff. He defunded public schools and pushed that funding into private education, signed multiple pro-gun, anti-safety legislation, including allowing guns in cars on school grounds. He signed laws that allowed LGBTQ discrimination from businesses. He was super pro-life. You literally can't find one non-conservative value that he holds, except that he won't coddle Trump's balls. And to MAGA, who are all fake political, that's enough to say he's not a Republican. The other point here I want to make is being that if Mike Pence, his VP, says we can't trust Trump, that's a major thing. His VP, his AG, his generals, Mike Milley, called him a fascist recently. The majority of his previous administration says, hey, this is a dangerous man who can't be trusted. But instead of heed those warnings and say maybe there's something there, if everyone close to Trump as president says we can't trust him, MAGA just calls them fake conservatives. However, for me, if lifelong Republicans who were the closest to Trump when he was president says we can't trust him, we should probably listen to those people.
What makes Donald Trump so special?
Oh my goodness, his honesty, his bravery.
Donald Trump, you think he's a very honest guy?
Oh, he's horrifically, wonderfully honest.
Horrifically honest.
Yeah, and wonderfully honest.
So he said that he won the 2020 election. Was that an honest thing to say?
I believe so.
He said just the other day, we actually lost it by a whisker.
Well, maybe he's had more pertinent information.
Honesty, let's be so for real here. He went on for years saying that he won the 2020 election after everyone in his administration, all courts, it was clear that he had lost. He knew that he lost, by the way. Also, if you just read the indictment, he knew that he lost. More information has came out recently of him saying, who cares if they think I lost? We're still gonna do this. Like, it's so obvious he knew that he lost. Pushed that lie for years, then admitted in an interview that, well, I lost by a whisker, right? And that didn't sit well with his base, so he went right back to lying again. So honesty, I mean, he said migrants are eating cats and dogs in Springfield. He said that he defeated ISIS in a week. He lied about the worth of his assets to defraud banks and was found civilly liable for doing that. He's lied about his crowd sizes numerous times, like in his inauguration. That was provably, verifiably false. He lied about refusing aid to Ukraine if they didn't give him dirt on Biden until it came to light that he did. And then he tried to play it off like, who cares? Then, I mean, there's also the more casual lies that he's told, right? Like promising infrastructure every week of his administration and literally never doing it, even when he had the House and Senate. Building a wall that Mexico would pay for. Mexico didn't pay for it. He didn't build the wall. 6% GDP growth didn't happen. Tax cuts that would pay for themselves did not pay for themselves. Added massively to our debt and deficit. Like, he said that if he didn't repeal Obamacare, it would crumble within 2 years. Obamacare still exists to this day. I think you'd have a shorter list trying to detail things he told the truth about, if I'm being for real, because I could make a 3-hour video just on his lies. Starting with honesty is what you like about Trump is just completely wild.